What you're about to see is just a short clip from my full documentary on Martin Luther King Jr. If you want to see the full video, including what I couldn't fit here, the link is in the description, or you can tap the card on screen now. Which, by the way, if you would like extended and uncensored videos that you cannot find here on YouTube, then please feel free to become a member of the Patreon. Link will be in the description to that as well. For those of you that are already members of the Patreon, please be on the lookout. We will be covering the news coming from the Trump administration, whom are now backtracking and stating that there was no blackmailing ring from Jeffrey Epstein, and that there is no Epstein list altogether. We will be breaking that down on my Patreon, so please be on the lookout for that over the next day or so. Now, there was a lot of FBI surveillance that was taking place throughout Martin Luther King's life, as a lot of us know already. But for this section of the video, we're going to particularly talk about some of the FBI surveillance that took place during what we're going to call SCLC, which is what we're going to call this place in short. We're going to talk about some of what the FBI surveillance claimed to have witnessed during their surveillance of this conference. They have alleged that they have audio of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. involved in extramarital affairs, including during the SCLC events, which, by the way, is common knowledge that Dr. Martin Luther King actually wanted to be with a white woman that he met at Boston University, but he couldn't because of the time that they were living in, so he settled for Coretta Scott King, but that's neither here nor there. The FBI even attempted to use these recordings that they found on Dr. King during this time to discredit and blackmail him, even sending him the infamous anonymous letter urging him to commit suicide, which once again we'll get into later. Some historians, such as David Garrow, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer, have written about King's affairs and suggested that some occurred during the SCLC related activities or trips. More controversially, Garrow also referenced FBI reports alleging that King was aware of or present during the acts of sexual misconduct by other people. So in other words, Dr. Martin Luther King wasn't just engaging in extramarital affairs and cheating on his wife, but he was apparently or allegedly present when it was taking place with other people as well. Last time I checked, that's called an orgy. These claims remain highly disputed and controversial, partly due to the FBI's agenda and unethical surveillance. I want to make sure that I include this to be fair, but I do believe these reports because too many folks were saying the same thing about Martin Luther King at the time, which you'll hear here in a moment. There were also rumors of other romantic entanglements between male leaders and female staff or volunteers. Ella Baker, one of the few high-ranking women in the movement, was known to be critical of the quote-unquote Messiah complex and the male-dominated culture in the SCLC, which she felt sometimes used women without empowering them. The movement's reliance on charismatic male preachers created an environment where admiration, influence, and travel could lead to moral lapses or boundary-crossing behavior. As in many high-pressure, high-profile movements, some leaders may have used their status in ways that conflicted with the values that they preached. And this organization altogether, and I'm not the first to say this, seemed to almost be like a business front used to have as much sex as possible in the veneration of Bacchus, which once again we'll talk about in a moment. And to be honest with you, I personally view what the SCLC was at that time, I personally view them as the equivalent of what Black Lives Matter is today, right? Supposedly serving a great cause that the general public is supposed to believe there is a need for. But when you actually dig into the organization itself, there was a lot of corruption and degeneracy involved. Every other person was a pansexual or degenerate in some manner, but pretended not to be public-facing wise. Which nowadays, Black Lives Matter don't even do that. Nowadays, being openly lesbian and gay is celebrated, of course. But it is believed and said by many that Dr. Martin Luther King was involved in pederasty and homosexuality. It is also said that Dr. Martin Luther King was sleeping with other people's wives and involved in pansexuality. So let's see here. It says explosive Martin Luther King document amid JFK files. So this came out back in 2017. Let's see what this is talking about. A secret FBI dossier on civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King alleges that he had a string of affairs and other sexual aberrations, as well as links to the Communist Party. I told y'all. I literally told this is what I wanted to get to, because I think this is going to be a good article to speak to some of the things that I was talking about, because the more and more I dug into just the Dr. Martin Luther King story, the more and more things started to make more sense to me. But let's read here. It says, it is dated just 3 weeks before Dr. King's assassination in April 1968. The file was released in a tranche of documents relating to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, released on Friday. Mr. Kennedy is not referenced in the file, and it is not clear why it was kept secret for almost 50 years. There is no evidence that any of the claims in the report were verified. Interesting. Its cover shows it was assessed in 1994 by an FBI task force on the JFK assassination, which concluded none of the documents should be released. Many of the allegations contained in the paper appear to be reports of private conversations between others or hearsay reported third hand. One allegation, that King had a mistress in California with whom he fathered a child, was attributed to a very responsible Los Angeles individual in a position to know. Among its other accusations are that Dr. King was surrounded by advisors with strong links to the Communist Party USA. His statements were always subject to approval by the alleged communist sympathizers. He was a secret supporter of communism, a wholehearted Marxist. I told you guys, and it makes sense. His organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, set up a tax dodge to raise funds for its activities. Dr. King took part in drunken sex orgies and coerced young women to participate. He had love affairs with at least 4 women, including folk singer Joan Baez, which, by the way, my understanding, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in the video, this is saying that he was involved with 4 women is actually very underwhelming. They're saying that he could have potentially been involved with 4 women a night. That's what some of the reports I found was saying. Let's see what it says here. The list of alleged indiscretions would likely have been deeply problematic for the civil rights leader if it had been made public in 1968. It says the reason King enjoyed this close relationship with communists is best explained by the fact that Livingston, someone we're going to talk about here in a second, in February 1962, passed the word to Gus Hall, General Secretary of the Communist Party USA. King is a wholehearted Marxist who has studied it, believes in it, agrees with it, but because of his being a minister of religion, does not dare to espouse it publicly. It says, in addition, King has been described within the Communist Party USA as a true, genuine Marxist Leninist from the top of his head to the tip of his toes. Let's see here. It says Dr. King was killed before the planned march. A slow thinker with abnormal sexual preferences. Now, what does that mean when it says abnormal? What could that mean? We know what normal sex looks like. So what could they mean when they're saying abnormal? Despite Dr. King's historical reputation as a skilled speaker, the FBI file claimed that other advisors approved everything Mr. King said. King is such a slow thinker, he is usually not prepared to make statements without help from someone. And I'm going to tell you all really why that was. It's because he needed approval. He had to get approval from his handlers that were around him. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. Linking Dr. King to communism, it claimed King is a wholehearted Marxist. Yes, we already read this in the document. And another part says, during the early 1960s, the CPUSA, the Communist Party, was striving to obtain a Negro labor coalition to achieve its goals in this country. Martin Luther King Jr. and his organization were made to order to achieve these objectives. The most salacious claims about Dr. King's sex life are contained in a dense collection of rumors in the final 2 pages. What does it say here? One room had a large table in it, which was filled with whiskey. The 2 Negro prostitutes were paid $50 to put on a sex show for the entertainment of guests. A variety of sex acts deviating from the normal were observed. So that sounds like there's some level of homosexuality there, whether that be between just the women or maybe even, Dr. Martin Luther King and other men. I'm not sure. This activity is not new to King and his associates. As early as January 1964, King engaged in another 2-day drunken sex orgy in Washington, D.C. Many of those present engaged in sexual acts, natural as well as unnatural, for the entertainment of onlookers. When one of the females shied away from engaging in an unnatural act, King and other of the males present discussed how she was to be taught and initiated in this respect. Through the ensuing years and to this date, King has continued to carry on his sexual aberrations. What does it mean to have an aberration? Secretly, while holding himself out to public view as a moral leader of religious conviction. Remember when we were speaking earlier about the Machiavellian complex, having to present yourself one way to further the cause while being a different way behind closed doors. This further speaks to that. It says, at a February 1968 workshop to train ministers in urban leadership, it is alleged one Negro minister in attendance later expressed his disgust with the behind-the-scenes drinking, fornication, and homosexuality that went on at the conference. This is supposed to be a conference heavily involving pastors and people involved in the church. I want to remind everybody of that. Several Negro and white prostitutes were brought in from the Miami area. An all-night sex orgy was held with these prostitutes and some of the delegates. These are some of the Freemasonry things that I feel like happens right there in our face, and we easily overlook it because there are a multitude of other things that these people were doing, a multitude of other speeches and other songs that these people released that almost we clump everything in together instead of being able to look at the signs that are right there in our faces. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Martin Luther King Jr. and Diddy were a part of Sigma Pi Phi, which was not only a fraternity, but it was specifically the Boule. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Boule, I've already talked to you about some of the things and initiation rituals that goes into fraternities and Freemasonry. But I'm going to let you all listen to this guy who was Diddy's sex slave, whom I've played on this channel multiple times. I want you all to take a listen to how he describes the Boule and how they get down.
Diddy and Ross, which they good buddies, okay? They're gay.
Who?
Both. Diddy and Ross. And Khaled. They're all gay, okay?
DJ Khaled, Rick Ross,
Yeah.
and P. Diddy?
Yeah.
They're all gay?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I know you may or may not, I know you're gonna believe. You have what's called the Illuminati. How do I know this?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do you know this?
You know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
I had settlement with Sean, okay? Okay? And he belongs to that agenda. That's what's so famous. I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate, tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a slave, okay? For them, that's what I was. That's all right? I caught herpes, and I came back and I sued him for the herpes and won. But did Mark Eros and Ben Mercedes were his attorneys, okay? And Christopher Leon's here was my attorney. They asked me to turn in that, which was the video recording, and I did so. They gave it back to me accidentally, and it's possible, I threw everything out, it's possible I can produce a copy.
Gotcha.
It's possible, I'm not sure. Now, my settlement put me in a box. Basically, I couldn't talk because I was going to be sued. So I let it be, but they've been following me, and they've had, Mark Garrett has had the FBI on me, has had other agencies looking at me and spying on me, okay, because they want to set me up as an extortionist. Like if I was extorting Sean for money. It's wrong. Basically what happened is Diddy and Ross, which they're good buddies, okay, they're gay.
Who?
Both. Diddy and Ross. And Khaled.
And even his ex-wife, who is an attorney, got interviewed, and that video actually dropped earlier today, where she came out and confirmed several things that was going on with him. One of them being that she 100% believes that he was a victim. So before any of you want to hop in the comment section and tell me how this is very insignificant and it doesn't have anything to do with anything, I beg to differ. Now we're going to read a couple of articles, and as always, I encourage you all to do your own research. I'm not saying to just automatically believe everything that we read or that I show you. I'm just trying to help you think. You know what I mean? So do your own research. I'll include the links to these articles in the description once again. So let's read here a little bit of the history again. I'm going to read this one and then one more, and I'm going to pick this article right here in particular is sort of like a transcript, if you will, of a video clip that I'm going to show you. But I'm not going to show you the entire video because it's like 2 hours long. So I'm going to just show you an excerpt from the clip. It's the clip that I played at the beginning of this video of the gentleman talking about the Boule. So let's read a little bit about who the Boule is and what they stand for. All right. So there's the video there, right? It says, Incorporated, founded May 15, 1904 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is the first black fraternity in America and was before the first black college frat, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, Incorporated, which is the one that Martin Luther King is a part of, right, as well, which was founded December 4, 1906. The Boule is a black Greek secret society based on another secret society founded at Yale University called Skull and Bones, which we've also talked about Skull and Bones on this channel because the Bushes went there, right? The Skull and Bones is a secret society that's held on Yale's campus. The Boule's primary founder was Dr. Henry Minton, along with Dr. Eugene T. Henson, Edwin Clarence Howard, Algernon, Brashear Jackson, Robert Jones, Abel, and Richard John Warwick of Philadelphia. The founding member of the New York chapter, W.E.B. Du Bois, said the Boule was created to keep the black professional away from the ranks of Marcus Garvey. One thing that needs to be pointed out is the time period. Shortly after the founding of the Boule was also a time Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa movement was reaching 1 million plus people without TV or radio. Du Bois emphasized, as Coakley stated, the importance to steal the black professional away from Garvey because an Afrocentric organization that articulated and captured the black professional would give whites no safe haven in the black community. So the Boule, the remaking of the House Negro, was necessary to build a group of Negroes who had an investment in protecting the white system as produced by whites having stolen this land. This is post-Reconstruction, taking away the articulate Negro, now desiring to replace them with organized institutions to keep them away from self-improvement. So we find in the same period as the founding of the Boule, the founding of the 4 black male Alpha Phi Alpha, Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, and Phi Beta Sigma, and 4 black female Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta, and Sigma Gamma Rho. College-based fraternities and sororities. We also find the founding of the NAACP and the Urban League. All of this was created around the same time, guys. Du Bois was one of the strongest opponents of Garvey and was an instrumental tool in stopping one of the strongest grassroots movements in this century. What was Garvey's plan? His plan was to take as many Africans from the Americas and start a settlement in the nation of Liberia and then help their new nation produce and control their own rubber crops and other industries and natural resources. And as I was telling you all, I am under the belief that Dr. Martin Luther King, while yes, he did a lot of good, I believe that good just so happened to come from it, right? But I believe the ultimate purpose was to use these people because otherwise, during the time of segregation and open racism and systemic racism, so-called black people are not going to listen to white folks, generally speaking, right? So how do you do it? We talked about this in the Tupac video. You create the leader for them, right? You create the quote-unquote messiah for them, and you're controlling this person behind the scenes, and you're having black, because a lot of, even today, we see people worship skin color. You see what I'm saying? And now you can prevent them from going in a particular direction or thinking a particular way. Instead, you can have them to think the way you want them to think. Let's go down here. It says, Garvey said, if the oil of Africa is good for Rockefeller's interests, if iron is good for Carnegie Trust, then these minerals are good for us. Why should we allow Wall Street and the capitalist group of America and other countries exploit our country when they refuse to give us a fair chance in the countries of our adoption? Why should not Africa give to the world its black Rockefeller, Rothschild, and Henry Ford? Du Bois, along with Alain Locke, the first black Cecil Rhodes scholar, publicly defied Garvey by calling him a gorilla any chance they got. Locke was, but I'm gonna skip this part. Let's get here, because again I'll include the link. I don't want to read too much of this. I want to get to the juiciest parts. All right, it says here, the question is, why were these black devils like this? The answer may lie in the fact that the Boule is a Greek organization. The name Boule is a Greek term meaning advisors to the king. The question is, who's the king? The king that they advise or protect are the white secret societies responsible for white supremacy. The first white Greek fraternity, Phi Beta Kappa, the Illuminati, Rhodes, Rothschild, Secret Society, Skull and Bones, the Masons, the Round Table Group, the New World Order, One World Government, the Carnage, Mellon Rhodes, Milner's Kindergarten, the Rose Crown, Times Crown, All Souls Group, Cliveden Sect, and numerous other wealthy family organizations. All are simply alias, and go by many names, but consist of same members and ideologies. These white beasts have raped, murdered, and colonized our people for hundreds of years, and their children continue to genocide against people of color around the globe. Let's see here. You know, something I used to think about when I went to college, first and foremost, I was asked if I wanted to join, and I looked at that person like they were crazy. And this was I was like maybe 21 at the time, and I was asked this question, or 20 at the time, and I was like, what? No. Like, why in the world would I want to join something like that? And I wasn't really asked too many times after that by anybody. But something I always noticed was, if it's all about, self-development and the things that they publicly say, which if you just use any critical thinking skills, you know that it's more than just self-development. There's hierarchies and favoritisms and secrets in a lot of organizations, right? And so don't tell me that these fraternities and sororities are any different. Of course they're not. But something I noticed was that mostly white people, both men and women, were a part of certain fraternities, and then the black people were a part of different ones. Why is that? I think we're reading into why is that. It says here, who is the Boule? They are the so-called talented 10th. Dubois is famous of speaking of. It must be also noted that Dubois Locke was a gay man. Dubois was also perceived to have homosexual tendencies. They are a mutation of a white man that seeks to represent something he is not. Greek. They are prominent blacks white America gave to us, like P. Diddy, like Tupac. Collectively, all 5,000 plus members in 112 chapters throughout the United States and West Indies, making up the wealthiest group of black men on the planet. And I'm just going to read this, and then we're gonna just wrap it up for now with this one. The history of the Boule. Boule, again, meaning advisors to the king, is the lower house of Greek parliament. Inside the Boule's history book, written by Charles H. Wesley, a Boule member, he also wrote the history books for Alpha Phi Alpha, the Elks, and Prince Hall Masons, and founded Central State University in Ohio. Wrote on page 28. While none of his founding members, Minton was also owned the first black drugstore in the United States. Wanted to create such an organization. Minton wanted to create an organization which would partake in the tenets, basis or root of Skull and Bones at Yale. Now, who is Skull and Bones? Skull and Bones, aka Brotherhood of Death, alias the second chapter of the Illuminati, incorporated for business purposes as Russell Trust, was established in 1776 at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. Most politicians, both black and white, are Masons. But there is a difference. Non-whites can only attain 33 degrees, and whites can get 33 1/3. The root of Masonry is of the knowledge 33 1/3 degrees. Now, if Henry Minton, who was black, wanted to create a black secret society based on these beliefs and customs, what type of devil is he? If you were to look on page 38 of the Boule's history book, it also says, in the building of the organization's plan, reliance was placed upon Greek history and tradition. The reasons of this actions are not difficult to discover, for it is well known that the study of Greek civilization was basically an acquaintance with Western civilization, although Greek culture had relationships with the culture of the Orient. If you are familiar with Masonry or secret societies, members took a pledge to never reveal the secrets of the organization, for if he did, his punishment would be death. This is why it's difficult to get any of the Boule members to tell us what's up. And then somewhere else in this it talks about they believe that, the Greek societies are the origin of civilizations and that they're responsible for a lot of things, when we know that that's not necessarily the case. Let me see if I can find the part where it says this. It's also interesting here. It says, one must also note that NAACP co-founder Joel Spingarn, a known beast who spied on the African community, was also very influential in the finding of the Boule. A lot of us don't know that a lot of these organizations were really a front. They were supposed to defend the countless atrocities against black people. On the contrary, we found out the very whites were complaining about actually helping fund these organizations. This makes a lot of sense now. I see why the NAACP doesn't even own the building national headquarters that is located there. Think about it. With all the loot the NAACP gets annually, and they still have to pay rent for their building. That's because they have to answer to someone, white people, who is their major fundraiser. Now, I know this one is heavily predicated on race, but I need you all to stick with me because I believe race is going to play a role when you're talking about the origins of these organizations.
Look at it with me and double affirm the fact that much of our black press, as much as we like it, has not been honest in talking about this group of black men, for they respect it very highly and never speak negatively against it. We also know that we've had many black people who've been a member of it and have never ever broken the code or the creed and spoken to one who was a non-member. Though they pledge and swear that their goal is to represent you, you will have a hard time believing it when they don't even seek to let you know that they who help you are. And so, in July 17th, 1990, July 18th, 1990, the Los Angeles Times did a front page story on the left column about elite fraternity of black men. Excuse me, brother. I saw that one get away. I'm just shaming myself. I stand back here. This elite fraternity of black men were described in the article as being influential, as being somewhat like Skull and Bones at Yale. And as it said these things, I was a little in awe, as the others, brothers in African Minds United and the Coalition Against Black Exploitation, as we all were intrigued by the fact that this group of men could have been in existence and we not know about them. And even other brothers and sisters. I remember talking to a brother who had been National Executive Secretary of Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma, been in fraternity land 37 years, had heard nothing of the Boule ever, though its founder had been a member. And so, as we began to talk about it with other people around the country, we began to realize that people didn't know about it. How you doing, Brother Warren? And not knowing that people didn't know about it, we just assumed that it was incidental, that everybody must know something about it, and that it was not mysterious or connected to all of those other things we had previously been talking about, like Cecil Rhodes and Baron de Rothschild and all the Halls of Haters, the ADL and the Diamond Jewish Connection. We've been talking about the Trilateral Commission, who is responsible for this economic summit that you'll be seeing on TV the next 3-4 days. You need to know that. Anybody? Carl Rowan came on the radio right here in LA. And my friends jumped him, because we jumping them in every city. And when they jumped him, he said the Trilateral Commission ain't done nothing. But the Trilateral Commission went to the president and had him set up the annual economic summit starting in '76, France. So when you listen to how your destiny of your country, they say, rides on that meeting, you wonder how Rowan could make such an allegation, but knowing as a Boule in Washington, D.C. Epsilon chapter, his goal is to never speak of the high, white, and mighty whom the Boule, all 3,300, are sworn to protect. Yes, these brothers that we are pushing up against the wall have taken a sworn oath that they will never expose the whites that they know actually run the world. They, in ambition and in deference to liberation and respect of the race, have agreed to maintain the status quo of white supremacy, which has two levels of white supremacy: a local, limited, parochial side, the Ku Klux Klan, the Reardons, the Kenny Hans, the local clans, but has a powerful, more mighty upper crust, which probably would include Occidental Petroleum and Arco and Exxon and Mobil Oil and the Rockefeller Foundation and other influential, wealthy families and institutions.
And then you got this article here, the Bethlehem Circle, that was published actually almost 12 years ago today. A couple of weeks will make 12 years on the dot. Let's see what it says here. Bethlehem Circle, the Boules, the Black Skull and Bones division. With so many black celebrities like LeBron James, Jay-Z, Drake, Beyonce, Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj, Frank Ocean, Kanye West, Rick Ross, the late great Michael Jackson, etc., flashing blatant Illuminati symbols and references in their music and videos, and before a basketball game, LeBron, I had to write this article. Let's get this straight. None of them are members of the Illuminati, Bohemian Grove, or Skull and Bones. Why? Because those organizations are for affluent white men only, so neither blacks nor women are allowed to join. What they are members of an offshoot of Skull and Bones called Sigma Pi Phi, aka the Boule, which means advisor to the king. Founded by two doctors, a dentist and a physician, all Afro-American, the fraternity was founded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1904. They established chapters in Chicago, Illinois, and then Baltimore. The organization was created because non-white professionals were not offered participation in the professional and cultural associations organized by affluent white males. Sigma Pi Phi has over 5,000 members and 126 chapters throughout the United States and the West Indies. Rumor has it that almost every prominent black male celebrity or successful business mogul is a member of this organization. What started out as an organization for prosperous black men to congregate and pull their resources together has over the years morphed into something more sinister. Rumor has it that the organization was infiltrated and neutralized by the Skull and Bones circa 1965 during the height of the civil rights movement to do their corporate and social engineering bidding. Y'all hearing what I'm saying? This is what I was telling you. They used these people to try to guide us because they knew they would be able to bring everybody into the fold if they got somebody of a certain skin color to talk to certain and different crowds of people, right? Depending on what the target population was. They would use certain people to do this. It says in exchange for access to resources like fame, funding, position, real estate, adequate legal representation, and so on. For one, the Boule is not an organization one can apply to. Joining is done by invite only. So an applicant has to be screened and fit their profile of membership. Political figures like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are said to be members. How these two operate in favor of the Boule, and this is one of the most crucial parts of this entire video, y'all. Please listen to what I'm about to read here. How these two, that being Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, and not just them two, it's other people like them, but this is typically how it works when you're talking about like the Hegelian dialectic tactics and things of that sort. How these two operate in favor of the Boule that operate in favor of big business is whenever an incident happens when a person of color is the victim of a white person, they're the first to take on the responsibility of exacting justice. How do they exact justice? By creating a storm of confusion via blame whitey and black victimization, which is why I tell brothers and sisters this, but I say think for yourselves. I will never say that racism doesn't exist. I will never say that systemic racism hasn't existed in this country. But what I'm telling you is we can clearly see that we have enough to be able to get by and create our own success. No matter what you look like in this country, that's true. I'm not saying there are not systemic injustices that don't happen. However, when they always yelling at you and telling you that something is about racism, and no matter what is racism, and it doesn't matter the circumstances, it doesn't matter the details, think for yourself. Go and check out the situation for yourself and you come up with your own conclusion, because these people are opportunists, but not just opportunists for themselves, but for those above them. Right? It says completely ignoring the fact that the number one killer of black men ages 16 to 35 are other black men. Many black politicians partner with Zionistic media outlets in creating a hate whitey mentality in many blacks who aren't aware of this trick. Rappers like Jay-Z, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, and others promote hedonistic music, flashing Illuminati symbols while showing off their riches to implant in the minds of many young people of color that the best way to become rich and famous is to become a secret society and do as thou wilt, like Aleister Crowley, who we've talked about many times on this channel, who a lot of these celebrities follow, right? The self-proclaimed most wickedest man in the world, who both Jay-Z and Michael Jackson looked up to. How does all of this tie into Sigma Pi Phi? As member of this elite organization, they must operate in the best interest of these corporate investors and against the betterment of their own people. Politicians like Sharpton and Jackson promote a black victimization, F the system mentality, while black entertainers promote an outlaw, anarchistic mindset and lifestyle that's prevalent among poor minority communities nationwide. Both are members of the Boule, and both parties create antisocial behavior with no sense of accountability, which influences criminal behavior, thus filling up the prison industry, which is what we was talking about. We've made videos on my YouTube channel talking about this. The hip-hop to prison pipeline with the meeting that happened in the 90s, that allegedly so-called happened in the 90s, and it's in my opinion, it's clear that this meeting happened somewhere around this time, or at least there was some sort of agreement, because there was a shift in the music around this time, and everything just became secular, raunchy, and deplorable, and degenerate music. It was just, everything was about degeneracy, and they celebrated it, right? Mainstream rappers also dictate what alcoholic beverage, car, or fashion brand to buy, making many of these corporations billions of dollars in exchange for endorsements. Simply put, they seduce their own people, then lead them to the slaughterhouse. This is why boastful former crack dealers like 50 Cent and Jay-Z are promoted, and humble, educated, gifted rappers like Mos Def and Common are not. To summarize, the recent explosion of black entertainers using secret society symbols and hand signs. They are not members of the Illuminati, but they are members of the Boule, and I would argue also Freemasonry as well, but that can go hand in hand, who does the bidding for the Illuminati in exchange for fame, fortune, and access to resources. And even this article here, right, says Diddy and the alleged connection to the Boule Society and Illuminati. And this was actually just posted 8 months ago, right? And so we're going to ride down here talking about the history of the Boule, which we've already read. But look at this. It says the Illuminati conspiracy. The Illuminati, originally a Bavarian secret society founded in the late 18th century, has evolved into a catch-all term for various conspiracy theories. Many believe that the Illuminati consists of elite members who control world events from behind the scenes. Diddy, along with other celebrities, has been linked to these theories, with claims that they are part of a larger agenda to manipulate public perception and control cultural narratives. Celebrity and conspiracy theories. Diddy is not alone in facing these allegations. Many high-profile figures are often drawn into conspiracy theories surrounding the Illuminati. This phenomenon reflects broader societal anxieties about power dynamics and the influence of celebrities in contemporary culture. The allure of conspiracy theories can stem from a desire to find explanations for complex issues, such as systemic inequality and the concentration of wealth. Critical examination is crucial to differentiate between fact and speculation when discussing the connections between Diddy the Boule Society and the Illuminati. While Diddy is a prominent figure, the claims surrounding him often lack substantial evidence. Instead, they highlight the tendency to connect successful individuals with secretive organizations without credible basis. Now listen, this right here, whenever you read something like this, when we're covering topics like this, when they say things to us like without credible basis, right, or substantial evidence, what they mean by that when they say substantial evidence or credible basis is you weren't there and you don't have it on video proof, and you also don't have these celebrities 100% admitting to be a part of this overall agenda. That's what they mean by that. And even then, they would even use, even if you had video evidence to prove certain things, they would still use your own eyesight and what you're seeing with your own eyes against you, right? So for example, Nori is the rapper who was a co-host of the show Drink Champs, which, interesting enough, that is hosted on Tidal, which was formerly owned by Diddy, of all people. There's an episode that went viral many times over now, where P. Diddy showed up for a Fabulous and Jadakiss interview, and Diddy is clearly acting extremely suspect and homosexual, calling other supposed heterosexual men daddy and begging them to party with him and holding their hands. It was just a very weird, it was clear as day what he was doing. Well, Nori just for the first time spoke on this situation on the Breakfast Club. And this is what I mean when I say even if you see something for your own eyes, they'll try to use it against you. Listen to Nori justify or try to paint a different narrative of what Diddy was actually doing that day. And the reason I want to show you this is because there are many people that's going to listen to Nori give the quote-unquote behind-the-scene explanation as to why Diddy was behaving and saying and doing some of the things he was doing. And there are going to be people that's going to actually believe him based on how believable he sounded.
I understand.
What I could say is, when I've ever been around, and I've been around quite some time, you know, I'm married, been married 16 years, so maybe I was never really around that, but I've never saw it. Mm-hmm. You know, I've never saw this monster that they described. When I hear the testimony, because I got ears and I got Q-tips, so I hear it. Some of this, whoa, and then some of it I'm like, nah, but I don't know.
But you've seen the freaky first hand.
No, I've never seen. I've really.
See, just I thought you went like that.
We see the interview every day, Nori.
What you say?
Your
The interview goes viral every day.
Yes.
Yeah,
your interview, yeah.
When you look back at that clip, do you be like,
We saw the freaky
All right,
first
you
hand.
ready? You ready for this?
Yes.
All right. Y'all ready for this?
Yes.
I've been waiting to say this story.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
Let's party.
oh
Let's
God,
go.
I feel like I'm back at court. It's a witness testimony.
Okay.
You want us to play it to refresh your memory?
No, I'm very refreshed. I see it every time it goes viral and I'm tagged. Yes, I look at it too and I watch the whole too. So here's what happened. Fab and Jada. Drink Chats were hot at the time. We got a budget to fly around. We were using the Revolt budget. Big up to Revolt. Everybody there. Thank y'all for holding us down. So they're in LA. We fly to LA. Kissing them on a promo run. Mm-hmm. I, like the creative person that I thought I was being, I messed up. But I thought I was being creative. I hit Puff. And I was like, yo, they're doing a whole press run.
That was for the Fab and Kiss album.
Yep. They're doing a whole press run. What can make ours different? You come to the show. So he's like, all right, cool. It's Groovy Lou's birthday. We're gonna go celebrate with y'all. Boom. Now that part you forget. That's why the candles was there. Right. It was Groovy Lou's birthday. Who is a Rastafarian? The furthest thing from anything flagrant, right? Fab, Jada Kiss, and Diddy arrive at the same time. Remember, Diddy's a surprise. So my friend Mr. Lee, who's Dominican, what's his slang? Dottie. Yo, Dottie. Yo, Dottie. That's how you talk in Dominicans because they don't want to say Poppy. Poppy is a Puerto Rican thing. You understand what I'm saying? So he sees Diddy. He's like, yo, Dottie, you got to put you over here, Dottie, because we got, and we don't want them to see it. So Diddy got that in his head now. Dottie. Now he just keying Dottie. He think that's what we saying. No, that's not what we're saying. It's just what Mr. Lee is saying. That's it. That's it. So we walk over and he goes, yo, what's up, Dottie? You up immediately. Yes, it does. All right, cool. Puts us in a. But here's what y'all don't know. When he's saying to Fabulous, yo, why don't you party with me no more? Look at us in front of Fabulous. That's not Ciroc. Fabulous had a whole Coco Loso with Diddy. So when I'm inviting Diddy to co-host, he has a whole nother thing. He's coming at Fab. Why you not drinking Ciroc no more? Right. That's what he's saying. Mm-hmm. Why we don't party no more? And look, he's pointing at it. He's like, and Fab, if you look, Fab is almost trying to throw the vodka away because he's like, and you know he had a deal. So that's really what that was about. Like that's what, and the daddy part came from Mr. Lee, and. You know,
hold on, Nori. No, there was more to that.
Let's go. I'm in.
He said, "I like it. I like it when you scramble, like that, Daddy. When you scrambling and scraping like that."
So where did that part come from?
No Dominicans was saying no scrambling and scraping.
Hey, that part, I can't. I don't know, Daddy. I don't know. I was thrown off too.
You mentioned this in the interview. What do you think is hip hop's obsession with the Illuminati?
I think hip-hop obsession with Illuminati is because we don't really know if it's real or not. Like, we don't, like, there's things that make you be like, and then there's things that make you say, I don't know. But that's like the devil. Like, it's actually like the devil. Like, do you really know if the devil, like, you know, every time you do something stupid, you be like, that's the devil. All right? But every time you do something good, a lot of people might praise God. They may be like, you know what I'm saying? But nobody really knows the answers. Like, as much as religious as you can be, or as religious as you can be, religious as you can be, religious as I can be, if this table right here doesn't believe in God, you can't convince it. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's what the Illuminati is. The whole thing is
it exists to a certain extent, but we don't know if it's real. So that obsession will never stop, because there's a person who could tell you, God saved me and God came down and touched me, but he's the only one who saw it. You feel me?
Who did the line Illuminati got my mind?
That's Prodigy. That's Prodigy. Big up Prodigy. Yes. Okay. Yes. I came out of jail reading The Pale Horse, and I read all that. And listen, I know Illuminati exists. Does it exist in hip hop? Probably not, but it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that some of our people are connected. It wouldn't be. Like, it just wouldn't be. You know what I mean? I'm sorry to say it, but so I think that's what the whole obsession with Illuminati is that it can exist, and then it can also not be. Like, but it's a level of success where it's a door. It's a door. When you platinum and you getting 50,000 a show, I've been there. There's a door that you could walk in. I'm not sure if it's homo or if it's Illuminati. I just didn't take that though. I went straight.
What do you mean?
Listen. When you get to a level of success, when you getting 30, 40, 50,000 a show, you platinum, you running across the world. There's 3 different doors, right? There's 3 different ways to walk. There's to the left. There's to the right, and then there's straight. Straight is you're on your own. Let's see if you continue this success, young man. Okay. Let's see if it's all about your skills, young man. Let's really see that when you went straight. To the right, I'm not sure if that's the homo shit right there. And then there's to the left, I'm not sure if there's some sacrifice shit going on right there. I'm not sure because I went straight. But I was offered these doors.
It's just you were offered some gay shit?
I don't, no. I'm saying that to the right when I seen it, those was those guys over there. You know what I'm saying? Those different people, which I have no problem with. You know, that's y'all. You feel me? And I just chose to go straight.
And this one right here says, breaking the code of silence, exposing the inner workings of the Boule Society, unveiling the hidden secrets and mysterious traditions of the elite black fraternity. This was published 2 years ago. And we can see here there's a lot of members here. And something that's typically said early, the earlier or the farther back you go to the inception of the Boule, the more light-skinned members there were, because the lighter your skin color was, the closer in proximity you were to white people, so to speak. This is what was said. The Boule Society, also known as Sigma Pi Phi, is an exclusive organization of black professionals that was founded over a century ago. Okay, we know all of this. But let's go down here where it says membership and selection process of the Boule Society. They must be a black American, right? Says that here. They must hold a professional degree or have achieved notable success in their field. And notice, it doesn't say a particular field. So you could be a pastor, you can be in the music industry, you know, standing and supporting and encouraging things that are completely opposite of what a pastor is doing, or you can be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It really didn't make a difference. They must have a strong commitment to serving the black community, and they must have a high level of integrity and ethical standards, which is very interesting because how do you define this high level of integrity and ethical standards? Right? Because in their organization, that could mean one thing, but then again, behind closed doors, they can mean something completely different. And they talk about the inner workings. Is this even interesting to read? Let's see. The inner workings of the Boule are shrouded in secrecy, and the organization is known for a strict code of silence. However, some details about its inner workings and traditions have been made public over the years. The Boule Society operates as a fraternal organization, and members organize into local chapters. The organization has a hierarchical structure with senior members holding positions of authority. Okay, this we know. It says that the traditions are the initiation ceremony, which is a highly secretive and elaborate affair. This ceremony involves various rituals, symbols, and traditions that are intended to reinforce the organization's values and principles. For example, members are required to swear an oath of allegiance to the organization and to keep its secrets, just like Freemasonry, just like any other fraternity. So there's no difference here, right? If it's about just development and caring about the black community, why do you have to swear to secrecy? Why do you have to take an oath? It makes no sense, right? Unless you're going to indulge in things and participate and be taught about things that the general public is not supposed to know. So it's not just for anybody to join, because they have to know that they can trust you. Criticisms and controversy surrounding the Boule. The Boule Society has faced criticism and controversy over the years, with some people questioning its secrecy, exclusivity, and influence. One of the main criticisms of the organization is that it is elitist and exclusive, with membership limited to a select group of black professionals, which is a fact, who are deemed worthy by existing members. Some have accused the Boule Society of being out of touch with the needs and concerns of the broader black community, and of using its influence to advance the interests of its members at the expense of others. Absolutely. That's how a lot of these organizations work. So there's no surprise there. Allegations of elitism and exclusion have been a persistent issue for the Boule Society. Some have accused the organization of perpetuating the very same systems of privilege and discrimination that it claims to be fighting against. Once again, no surprise. If you are of the so-called black community, then you're already familiar that there is colorism in the black community, right? The darker you are, the more you're frowned upon. So if they're saying that, so to speak, the origins of this Boule was not only founded, but you had so-called white people that helped with the inception of this organization in order to control the people who came through this organization, then it wouldn't be a surprise that a lot of them, not, being like maybe 40 years removed from slavery, would be heavily influenced by white people and wanting to have close proximity to white folks. So once again, there's no surprise there. Critics argue that the Boule Society reinforces a hierarchical and elitist system that privileges the interests of a select group of black professionals over the broader black community. Yeah. They have been subject of numerous conspiracy theories, with some people alleging that it is a part of a secret society with nefarious intentions. Some of the conspiracy theories surrounding the Boule includes claims that it is a tool of the Illuminati, that it is involved in mind control and brainwashing, and that it is connected to various other secret societies and shadowy organizations. Now, them using this term, like I was just saying with the other article, them using these terms like conspiracy theories and not, lacking substantial evidence and things of that sort, not being credible. People are waking up, bro. People are thinking for themselves, and you're not going to be able to bully us or make us feel bad or guilt trip us into not thinking or doing our own research in 2025 simply because you're calling us a conspiracy theorist. Okay, so what? We're going to continue to look, and we're going to use our critical thinking skills and be able to contextualize these situations to be able to put, pieces together like a puzzle and come up with our own conclusion based on what we think this picture is telling us. Now, for obvious reasons, people will not be happy that I'm comparing in any way Martin Luther King to P. Diddy. But the truth of the matter is they both were a part of the Boule. And regardless of what it is that you choose to believe about the Boule and what you choose not to believe about the Boule, I believe, as I read in the clip that I showed you, many other people believe as well, that while the Boule was founded by some African American members, there are many of us that believe that it was funded by white billionaires. Now, that leads me to my second point, which is, could the FBI have been lying on Martin Luther King and trying to smear him because he was a black revolutionary civil rights leader, and they were trying to discredit him and his credibility? Sure, that's absolutely a possibility. I do not dismiss that. However, I would ask you all to just be consistent, because the same rich white people that we want to call billionaires are not only allegedly funding the Boule, which is just the black version of other secret societies such as Skull and Bones, which, by the way, when we say secret, we're not stating that the organization and its existence in itself is secret, but the things that they believe in and the things that they do behind closed doors is what we're referring to when we say secret. But if you're going to state that these people are racist, then you would have to also explain to me the very controversial question, why is it that a lot of these white billionaires are funding racial justice causes? For example, you have people like George Soros, as we know, who gave $33 million to Black Lives Matter and other related organizations. George Soros also funded NAACP, which was founded by none other than Thurgood Marshall, who we also covered in the Martin Luther King documentary, who was an open Freemason. Now, I want to also respond to some other comments that I saw under the Martin Luther King video, full video, where people were stating that, not a lot of people, but some people were stating that, hey, many people are Freemasons. Many people are members of fraternities and sororities, and they don't know a lot. They don't know anything about what these high-level Freemasons or what these high-level frat and sorority members believe in and what they do. And while that's true, if you're expecting me to believe that somebody is also revolutionary and famous, but they're a low-level Freemason, I refuse to believe that. If you expect me to believe that somebody of P. Diddy's stature is also a low-level Freemason, I refuse to believe that, because while there's no evidence that Martin Luther King Jr. himself was a Freemason while he was alive, as I covered in the clip, he was, after he passed away, he was 100% made a Master Mason, which is a third-degree Mason, by Freemasons. What is it about Martin Luther King Jr. and what he stood for and what he did that would make them not only make him a Mason without his permission, but automatically rank him as a Master Mason? But it is also a fact that Martin Luther King Jr.'s dad was a Freemason. It is also a fact that many members surrounding Martin Luther King was either members of a fraternity or sorority, which are low-level Freemason organizations, or they were flat out publicly known to be Freemasons or a member of the Eastern Star, which is the female version of Freemasonry. That's a fact. So I know we want to pull the racism card, and I'm not completely dismissing it at all, but the point that I'm making is we need to be consistent, because the truth is Martin Luther King's mother went to Spelman College. Spelman College is named after a woman named Laura Spelman. Laura Spelman was the wife of John D. Rockefeller, who John D. Rockefeller is actually one of the biggest funders of Spelman College. After the two women who founded the college, Spelman College, which is a school for black women and girls, they met with John D. Rockefeller. He liked what he heard, and he chose to fund the organization. Well, it is also a fact that the Rockefellers actually fund many HBCUs. I need somebody to explain to me, if a lot of these white billionaires are so racist, why are they funding and some of the heaviest funders of these organizations? The Ford Foundation and the Bloomberg Philanthropies, these organizations are funding a lot of these black racial justice movements. I need somebody to explain it to me. I'm going to tell you why I think they're doing it. I think it goes back to the style in which our education system was founded upon. What am I talking about? I think the way in which our education is structured here in America, it was important to get everybody in America to be a part of this education system. I think that was a smaller piece of the bigger global agenda that was behind the civil rights movement. That's what I believe personally, because what a lot of people don't know is the education system, or the structure of our education system, is actually heavily inspired from Germany. It's something called the Prussian model, because at the time, in the early 19th century, Germany, what we know now to be Germany, was actually called Prussia. So when you have things like, when you look at our education system and you have features such as mandatory attendance, standardized curriculum, centralized control by the state, separation by grade and age, a lot of people are going to say what I just named, a lot of those tenets are actually good things. But here's where it becomes a problem. I can argue not only is the fact that it's a problem because we're still following that same style today, and so it's very much so outdated, but I can also argue that it was bad from its inception because of these next features of the education system that we go by in America, such as heavy focus on obedience, punctuality, nationalism, rote learning, designed to create disciplined citizens and loyal soldiers or workers.
I did some investigation into the derivation of the American public education system and found out that it was based on the Prussian model. And the Prussians produced a universal education system in the late 1800s because they were afraid they were losing military superiority, and they wanted to produce a cadre of mindless, obedient soldiers. That was expressly the purpose. And then that model was adopted by prototypical fascists in the US, again in the late 1800s, this is before Mussolini and all of that time, corporate types mostly, who wanted to produce cadres of obedient workers. And that's why the desks are in rows, and that's why there's factory bells, and that's why it's top-down leadership. What was really stunning about that wasn't only that that was the model, but it's worse than that, because the people who built the schools were consciously aiming at eradicating the will of the students who were part of the system because they wanted them to be obedient.
I'm sure I'm not that good at putting together a ceiling fan either. I wouldn't enjoy it, but I could do it. You just follow the directions. Like, you could follow the directions. It's not hard. It's just you wouldn't enjoy it. But if it was something that you enjoyed doing, like learning how to swing a golf club better, then you can pay attention.
I do pay attention to that.
That's all I'm saying. I think there's roles in this world. And different personalities fit perfectly into mathematics. Different personalities fit perfectly into philosophy. Engineering. Different personalities. It's like you just got to find out what vibes with the way you think, and we all think differently. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different biology. You just got to find what is the thing that like syncs up with the way your mind works. And the problem with traditional education is it was designed by the Rockefeller family. Like the school system in this country was designed to create better factory workers.
Right.
And soldiers, and to get them real early. That's why they want to start you at 5, because they figured out when you start people at 12 or 13, they already got their ideas of what the world is and how the world works. And I'm not fucking shooting somebody for you. So what they do is they get you when you're 5. And when you're 5, they can kind of indoctrinate you, separate you from your parents most of the day while your parents are at work. And so that's like most of your day, you have other people other than your parents telling you how the world is, how the world works, what's happening in your life, and what you should be doing. And that's kind of crazy because a lot of those people suck. I remember thinking that when I was a kid, like thinking that how strange it is that people that I don't respect and I don't enjoy are the ones that are in control of communicating to me most of the day. I remember very clearly thinking that when I was a little kid, like 10, 11 years old.
The education system that we go by was not designed to encourage or emphasize critical thinking. The current education system that we go by was not encouraged to promote or encourage creativity. That's a fact. We all know we all have different personality types. We have different things that interest us. We have different ways that we learn. Yet we put everybody in a classroom. We teach them things, which, by the way, everything we teach in the classroom isn't even necessarily true, especially when it comes to history. We expect most people to learn in the same exact way. We're actually not teaching them the things that are going to be important and necessary in life. Building credit, how to become skilled workers, emphasis on STEM programs, skilled trade jobs, coding. They don't actually teach us the things that are going to actually how to change, even as small as how to change a flat tire. Financial literacy. Yeah, some schools do it, but it should be the standard. And we know that these things are not. There are so many unnecessary things that we're being taught in our education system, which then has a lot of people still relying on the government even after they've gained education. So I don't believe our education system is about education in itself. I believe it's about programming. I believe it's about conditioning. So once again, do I believe Martin Luther King Jr. actually cared about black people? Absolutely. But I believe him, just like Diddy, were used by much more powerful people that had their own agenda and decided to use individuals who had a real passion or maybe a certain skin color, a certain hobby that could attract to a particular audience. They used them to further their agenda. That's what I believe. I know many people won't agree with this, but here's the question I'm going to end this video off with. Regardless, whatever from this video you choose to believe, not believe, you could think this video is trash. Answer this simple question for me. If you are one of the people that are in denial that Martin Luther King Jr. was not being used for reasons that we were not told, generally speaking, answer this simple question. Why was Martin Luther King Jr. not pow-powed? Why was he not killed immediately? I'm not talking about in Memphis when he was eventually assassinated. I'm not talking about a decade before when this black woman tried to stab him in the heart. That's not what I'm talking about. Why was Martin Luther King Jr., the moment he started to gain any traction, before any Nobel Peace Prizes, before any marches, before any major speeches, before the people rallied behind him, why did they not just get rid of him right away? Why do they have statues of Martin Luther King today? Why do these same racist people that run our country revere him so much? Why is he so celebrated if our country is so racist? Why in just about every major city there is a major road that is named after Dr. Martin Luther King? And why are a lot of those roads typically the most dangerous road in that city? Why is Dr. Martin Luther King one of the maybe 2 or 3 people in American history with his own holiday? Could it be because he revolutionized and brought forth something in this country that not only benefited so-called black people and minorities, but it benefited another agenda that they did not tell us about. Hop in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. I'm Demetrius. I go by Diddy. That's all for this one. Peace. Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.